The Law Factor with advocate Clarence Arenas-Gandawa.
Greetings of the day. A nation does not collapse when buildings fall. A nation collapses when trust falls. When citizens obey the law but no longer believe in the lawgiver. When institutions function but no longer inspire confidence. When the state speaks and the people listen with suspicion. This is the silent crisis across the continent, the crisis of legitimacy. Governments govern, courts adjudicate, parliaments legislate, but citizens ask, do these institutions still serve us or do they serve themselves? A fragile state is not a weak state. A fragile state is a distrusted state. The indicators of erosion when confidence cracks. Trust does not disappear overnight. It erodes slowly, silently, predictably. Look at the signs. Corruption normalized is the way things work. Elections contested before they begin. Courts viewed as extensions of power. Public service treated as private property. Youth disengaging from civic life. Citizens turning to social media for justice. Communities relying on informal systems over formal ones. These are not administrative problems. These are constitutional warning lights. A state can survive economic shocks. A state can survive political crises. But a state cannot survive the loss of public trust. Case study. The broken permit office. A citizen walks into a government office for a simple permit. She is told, come back next week. Then come back tomorrow. Then the system is down. Then the officer is not available. Then try again next month. She is not denied by law. She is denied by dysfunction. And dysfunction is a form of injustice. She leaves not angry but resigned. And resignation is the death of civic hope. This is how trust dies. Not with a scandal, but with a shrug. Judicial responsibility. Courts as restorers of faith. Courts must do more than interpret statutes. They must defend legitimacy. Every judgment is a message. Every delay is a wound. Every inconsistency is a crack in the constitutional wall. Judges must insist on transparency in state decisions, accountability for administrative failure, remedies for bureaucratic injustice, independence from political interference, timely delivery of justice. A court that protects fairness protects faith. The robe must not only command respect, it must earn it. Let's talk Parliament, the architecture of accountability. Parliament must legislate not for power but for trust. Laws must require transparent procurement, independent oversight bodies, merit-based appointments, public reporting obligations, strong anti-corruption frameworks, protection for whistleblowers. Because opacity is the enemy of trust, and trust is the currency of governance. A parliament that fears scrutiny is a parliament that fears the people. Public education, rebuilding civic confidence. Citizens must understand how institutions work, how to demand accountability, how to challenge abuse, how to participate meaningfully, how to protect their rights. A democracy without civic literacy is a house without windows. Public trust is not restored by speeches, it is restored by understanding. Radios, schools, churches, chiefs' councils, these must become classrooms of civic renewal. Eswatini in focus. Tradition, power, and the trust deficit. In Eswatini, trust is shaped by history, culture, and power. But even tradition requires transparency. Even monarchy requires accountability. Even culture requires clarity. Citizens must not rely on verbal instructions from clerks. They must not navigate systems without handbooks. They must not depend on personalities instead of procedures. Eswatini must modernize its governance architecture before distrust becomes generational. A nation that wants stability must first build credibility. A state that loses trust loses authority. A government that fears scrutiny fears its own shadow. Legitimacy is not inherited, legitimacy is earned through fairness, transparency, and accountability. The law must rebuild confidence brick by brick, judgment by judgment, reform by reform. Trust is not a slogan, trust is a system. Strengthen the system. The law moves forward, you must move with it. See you next Thursday. The work continues.
Springfield Law Clinic, justice defined, rights protected. We are here to serve.